You know what's funny? People don't usually realize what they lost until you stop needing them. They think you'll always be there, waiting, trying, proving your worth. But the second you shift that energy back to yourself, everything changes. They start to notice your silence. They start to feel your absence. They start to regret what they took for granted. Because when you grow, when you glow, when you finally become everything they thought you couldn't without them, that's when it hits them. That's when they realize losing you wasn't just losing a person. It was losing peace, loyalty, and love they'll never find again. They'll regret losing you when you finally stop proving your worth. Because for so long, you've been in this cycle of trying to show people that you're enough. You've bent over backwards, overextended yourself, explained your intentions, justified your actions, all because you wanted to be understood. You wanted them to see the heart behind what you do, the effort you put in, the love you were giving. And when they didn't, it made you question yourself. You started to wonder if maybe you weren't doing enough, if maybe you were the problem, if maybe you needed to try harder. That's what happens when you tie your worth to someone else's recognition. It becomes a moving target you can never quite hit. But there comes a moment, usually after you've poured yourself out completely, when you realize that no amount of effort can make someone value what they've already decided to take for granted. It's the kind of realization that hurts because it's quiet. It doesn't come with closure, it comes with clarity. You start to see that the problem was never that you weren't enough. It was that you were giving too much to the wrong person. And the more you tried to prove your worth, the more they got comfortable not appreciating it. Because when people know you'll always show up no matter how little they give in return, they stop trying. They stop seeing your effort as a gift and start seeing it as a guarantee. When you stop proving your worth, you take that guarantee away. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening to understand you. You stop begging for validation that you should have been giving yourself. You stop pouring into relationships that only left you empty. And it's not bitterness, it's self-respect. It's the quiet decision to no longer be available for what doesn't value you. It's finally realizing that love doesn't have to be earned through overextension, and that peace doesn't require permission. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth is the moment everything shifts. You start carrying yourself differently. You speak with more certainty. You walk away quicker. You no longer chase explanations or closure from people who know exactly what they did. You stop replaying conversations in your head, trying to find where you went wrong, because you understand now that sometimes people mistreat you, not because of who you are, but because of what they lack. And that lack is not your responsibility to fill. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It comes after many disappointments, after too many second chances, after realizing that the person who kept asking you to prove yourself was never really looking for proof. They were looking for control. And once you take that control back, it unsettles them, because your peace exposes their manipulation. Your confidence makes their absence irrelevant. The power dynamic flips. The one who once made you feel like you had to earn their attention suddenly finds themselves craving yours. They start to notice your silence. They start to feel your distance. They start to realize that the version of you they used to take for granted doesn't exist anymore. And that's when the regret begins. Not necessarily because they miss you, but because they miss what your presence did for them. You were the one who made things easier, who understood them, who showed up even when they didn't deserve it. They'll start to remember the little things, the messages you used to send, the way you cared without being asked, the way you made them feel like they mattered. And now, in your absence, they're left with the echo of what they thought they could replace. But you see, when you stop proving your worth. You don't do it to make them regret losing you. You do it because you've finally learned that your worth was never something to be proven in the first place. You don't have to audition for love. You don't have to perform for acceptance. You don't have to chase someone to show them what they're losing. You simply exist as you are, and the right people will recognize that without needing a demonstration. When you stop proving your worth, you start protecting your energy. You begin to notice how much lighter life feels when you're not constantly explaining yourself. You start attracting people who meet your effort instead of draining it. You stop saying yes out of fear and start saying no out of peace. You build boundaries, not walls, but doors that open only for those who come with respect. You begin to find strength in your silence and confidence in your solitude. And here's the most powerful part. You realize that the version of you who tried so hard was never weak. That version was just someone who cared deeply, someone who loved fully, someone who believed in people even when they didn't deserve it. But now you've learned how to love with boundaries, how to give without losing yourself, how to walk away with grace instead of guilt. You've learned that self-worth isn't something you earn through others, it's something you reclaim within yourself. So when they start to notice your absence, when they finally realize what they lost, when they see that you're no longer the same person they once overlooked, they'll regret it. Not because you've become someone new, but because you've finally remembered who you were before you tried to prove your worth to them. They'll regret it when they see you thriving without their approval. They'll regret it when they realize that you were never the one who needed convincing. They were. Because the moment you stop proving your worth, you stop giving them the power to define it. And that's when they truly understand what they lost. They'll regret losing you when peace becomes your new priority. Because for the longest time, you confused chaos with connection. You thought that constant back and forth, those endless explanations, those emotional highs and lows meant passion, meant love, meant something worth fighting for. But deep down, you were fighting for peace in places that only thrived on conflict. You got used to tension being normal, to walking on eggshells being love's price, to apologizing for things you didn't even do just to keep the peace that was never really there. And then one day, something in you breaks, not the kind of break that destroys you, but the kind that wakes you up. You get tired, not angry, just exhausted from the emotional noise. You start craving calm more than you crave being understood. That's when peace becomes your new priority. It doesn't happen with a dramatic exit. It happens quietly. You stop arguing to be right. You stop explaining to people who listen only to respond. You stop matching energy that drains you. Instead of reacting, you breathe. Instead of chasing closure, you create distance. You learn that silence can be stronger than any response, that not everything needs to be fixed, that sometimes peace means letting things end without an explanation. And as that shift happens, your world starts to feel different, lighter, freer, quieter. You realize how much of your energy went into managing other people's emotions, and you begin to take that energy back. You begin to notice how your body feels when it's not in a constant state of defense. You realize that calm isn't boring, it's healing. You start to see that the right people don't bring chaos into your life, they bring clarity. You stop confusing attention for affection. You stop settling for relationships that disturb your peace just because you're afraid of being alone. Because now, solitude feels better than forced connection. You find peace in your own company, and that changes everything. When peace becomes your new priority, you start setting boundaries that you used to be scared to set. You stop responding out of obligation and start protecting your energy out of self-respect. You don't explain your boundaries, you just live by them. You don't chase people who left, You let them go and trust that what's meant for you won't require chaos to keep it. You understand that peace isn't about avoiding problems, it's about not letting problems control your emotions. You begin to take full ownership of what you allow into your life, and that kind of self-awareness makes you untouchable. People who once thrived on your emotional reactions won't know how to handle your calm. They'll try to provoke you, guilt you, pull you back into the storm they're comfortable in. But this time, you don't bite. You've outgrown the need to prove yourself in their drama. They'll notice it, your stillness, your detachment, your peace, and it'll unsettle them. Because people who are used to chaos don't know how to function when you stop participating in it. And that's when regret hits them. Not just because you're gone, but because you're unbothered. They'll regret losing the version of you who used to try so hard to fix things, to hold things together, to keep the connection alive no matter the cost. Now, your peace costs more than their presence. You've learned that your energy is sacred. You no longer trade your mental health for temporary validation. You no longer let anyone's inconsistency disturb your inner calm. You no longer carry the weight of relationships that were never balanced in the first place. You start choosing environments, conversations, and people that feel like rest, not resistance. You begin to see that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival, it's self-love in action. And when you start living that way, everything changes. Your tone softens, your mind clears, your focus sharpens. You have more time for the things that actually fulfill you. You start making decisions from a place of calm rather than fear. You stop rushing. You stop overthinking. You start living slower, deeper, truer. You find beauty in quiet mornings, in boundaries that hold, in saying no without guilt. You start to appreciate the peace that comes when you stop chasing things that were never meant for you. They'll regret losing you because they'll feel the difference. They'll notice how your absence feels like peace they can't replicate. They'll realize that while they were looking for control, you were looking for calm, and you found it. They'll look back and see that you were the steady one, the grounding presence, the one who made their world make sense. And now, that energy isn't theirs anymore. You reclaimed it. You redirected it toward yourself. You turned it into growth, clarity, and purpose. When peace becomes your new priority, you stop being emotionally accessible to chaos. You don't need to prove your calmness. You embody it. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You stop giving unlimited access to people who can't handle the responsibility of it. You move differently, speak less, feel more. You no longer operate from pain, you operate from peace. And that shift, that quiet evolution, is exactly what they'll regret the most. Because while they're still chasing the noise, you've found something far more powerful, silence that feels like freedom. They'll regret losing you when you start matching energy instead of excuses. Because for so long, you've been the one giving more, trying harder, showing up even when they didn't. You made excuses for people who gave you the bare minimum because you believed in their potential more than their patterns. You told yourself, they're just busy, or they didn't mean it that way, or maybe they'll change. You filled in their silence with understanding, their distance with patience, their inconsistency with hope. And every time you did, you taught them that they could do less and still keep you, that they could disappear and come back whenever it was convenient, that you'd always be there waiting. But one day, you stop. Not because you stop caring, but because you finally get tired of being the only one who does. You realize that effort should be mutual, not one-sided. That love shouldn't feel like convincing. That you don't need to keep carrying relationships that refuse to meet you halfway. You stop making excuses for why someone can't give you the same energy you give them, and instead, you start matching theirs. If they communicate less, you communicate less. If they show up inconsistently, you stop rearranging your life to accommodate their unpredictability. If they stop trying, you stop chasing. It's not revenge, it's reciprocity. And that's when everything starts to shift. The dynamic that once gave them control starts to even out. They notice that your tone changes, not out of anger, but out of peace. You stop explaining why you deserve effort. You stop reminding them what you bring to the table. You simply stop pouring from an empty cup. The energy you used to give them, you now invest in yourself. You start focusing on your growth, your goals, your peace. You stop waiting for them to validate you because you've finally realized that they can't appreciate what they don't understand. When you start matching energy, you begin to see who really cares. The ones who valued your effort only when it benefited them will start to feel the absence of it. They'll realize how much you carried the relationship, how much you gave without asking for much in return. They'll notice that the balance they once ignored now feels like distance. They'll start to reach out more, not out of love, but out of confusion, because your indifference disrupts the control they once had. They'll say you've changed, but the truth is, you've just stopped explaining why they haven't. Matching energy isn't about being cold or detached. It's about respecting yourself enough to stop overgiving. It's about understanding that you deserve effort without begging for it. It's about recognizing that people who want to be in your life will meet you halfway, and the ones who don't won't. And instead of taking that personally, you take it as information. You stop personalizing other people's lack of effort and start prioritizing your own peace. You start seeing that the right people will never make you question where you stand. And here's the thing. When you start matching energy, your standards naturally rise. You no longer tolerate half-hearted communication, mixed signals, or conditional attention. You start craving consistency, effort, and honesty. You no longer chase connections that only exist when you're the one keeping them alive. You start realizing that the people who truly care won't let the energy die just because you stopped overcompensating. They'll step up. They'll match you back. That's when regret creeps in for the ones who took you for granted, because they start to see the difference between the version of you who tried too hard and the version who no longer does. They remember how easy it used to be to get your attention, how available you always were, how patient you stayed no matter what. And now, all of that is gone. They see that your energy isn't free anymore. It's earned. They realize that they had access to the best version of you, and they wasted it. They'll reach out, testing the waters, hoping you'll fall back into the same patterns of over-explaining, over-caring, over-extending. But this time, you don't. You respond with balance. You keep the same energy they give. And that's when they truly feel the loss. Not because you're gone, but because you're no longer accessible in the same way. You've evolved from needing to be chosen to choosing yourself. You've stopped accepting confusion as chemistry and effort as an option. And as you grow, they'll see it. They'll see your glow change, your focus sharpen, your peace deepen. They'll realize that while they were busy being inconsistent, you were busy becoming someone who doesn't settle for inconsistency. They'll see that the version of you who once tolerated everything now demands alignment. And that's when they'll regret losing you. Not just because they miss you, but because they'll finally understand that you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. When you start matching energy, you send a clear message your effort is valuable, your time is limited, and your peace is non-negotiable. You stop begging people to stay and start trusting that what's meant for you will match you naturally. You stop lowering your frequency to be understood by those who refuse to rise to your level. You become intentional about where your energy goes. You learn that love isn't proven through exhaustion, it's proven through consistency. And that's what they'll regret most. Not your absence, but your evolution. Not that you stopped trying, but that they didn't try when you did. Because when you start matching energy, instead of excuses, you stop orbiting around people who never planned to meet you halfway. You step back into your own power, and suddenly, you become the peace they can't find anywhere else. They'll regret losing you when you become everything they thought you couldn't without them. Because people have a way of underestimating you when they think you need them. They mistake your loyalty for dependency. They see your kindness as weakness. They convince themselves that your world revolves around them, that your strength depends on their presence, that you'll crumble without their approval. And for a while, you might have believed it too. You might have believed that you needed them to be complete, that they were the missing piece holding your life together. But time and pain have a way of revealing truth. You don't lose yourself when they leave, you find yourself. At first, it's not easy. It's disorienting. You have to rebuild parts of yourself you gave away to keep the relationship alive. You go through the quiet moments where you question your worth, where you replay everything trying to understand how you ended up here. You face the loneliness that used to scare you, but somewhere in that silence, something changes. You stop looking for closure and start creating your own. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Watch me." The same energy you once used to keep them happy, you now use to build yourself up. You channel your pain into purpose, your heartbreak into healing, your doubt into drive. You start setting goals you once put aside for them. You chase opportunities you never had the courage to go after. You rediscover your voice, your confidence, your independence. You realize that the version of you they left was only a fraction of who you could be. You become stronger, not because they hurt you, but because you learned that your worth was never tied to who stayed. It was proven by how you rose after they left. You start to glow differently, move differently, think differently. You're no longer fueled by proving them wrong, but by becoming so aligned with your own purpose that their opinion no longer matters. And that's when they start to notice. The same people who doubted you, who walked away, who thought you'd fall apart without them. They see you now thriving, laughing, living in a peace they never gave you. They see you stepping into your confidence, surrounded by opportunities, radiating a calm power that's impossible to ignore. And it unsettles them, because they remember the version of you who used to second, guess everything, who used to seek reassurance, who used to tolerate mistreatment just to feel loved. That version doesn't exist anymore. You outgrew the version of yourself that relied on their approval. They'll regret losing you because they'll realize they didn't just lose a person. They lost potential. They lost the version of you who believed in them unconditionally, who saw their best even when they didn't show it. They'll regret the way they underestimated your strength because now that strength shines in everything you do. You're succeeding without their support, smiling without their validation, and thriving in a peace they never thought you'd find. They'll watch you build a life that doesn't include them and realize that they were never your foundation. They were just a chapter. You become everything they said you couldn't. The one who moved on, healed, and grew. The one who turned heartbreak into a lesson instead of a limit. You stop waiting for someone to save you and become the person who saves yourself. You start surrounding yourself with people who bring balance instead of chaos, people who see your worth without you having to explain it. You learn to stand alone without feeling lonely, to love without losing yourself, to let go without resentment. And that strength, that quiet self-assurance, is what they'll never forget. Because while they were busy doubting you, you were busy evolving. While they thought you'd fall apart, You are learning how to rebuild. While they were comfortable believing you'd always need them, you were outgrowing the need entirely. You begin to realize that the best revenge isn't success, it's peace. It's waking up one day and realizing that you don't think about them anymore, that their name no longer carries weight, that your happiness doesn't depend on anyone's presence but your own. You're not bitter, you're free. And that freedom is powerful. It's the kind of transformation that makes people look back and wonder how they ever let you go. It's the kind of growth that turns pain into purpose. It's the kind of glow that can't be faked or replicated. They'll try to reach out, to reconnect, to test if you're still the same. But you won't be. Not out of pride, but because the version of you they remember no longer exists. You've evolved beyond the point of needing what once hurt you. They'll regret losing you when they see that you became everything they never believed you could. The independent one, the peaceful one, the unbothered one. The version of you that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't break. You've stepped into your worth, and once you do that, there's no going back. They'll see it in your confidence, in your calm, in the way you carry yourself. They'll see that the loss they caused didn't destroy you. It built you. And that's the kind of regret that doesn't fade, because every time they see you now, they'll be reminded of what they took for granted and what you became because of it.